Hello, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and today we're looking at a first submission by Erin of her horse Eve. Eve is off the racetrack only last May, raced in something like 30 races, she said. It was in pretty rough shape when she got her. She had a chiropractor go over and found some issues that she worked on. And she gave her a little off time and is now starting her back. And looks like she's doing quite a good job of it here to start off with. It's always difficult bringing horses right from the track because they're usually very hyper fit, and Erin did the right thing by letting the horse have some downtime and just kind of chilling out. You know, when you have horses that are so fit coming off the racetrack, the biggest mistake people make with them, especially people who've never worked with thoroughbreds, is they just don't realize how quickly they get fit. If you've ever watched racehorses work, their whole workout in the morning is about a 15-minute long thing. They come out and they trot one way around, and the track, then turn around the other way and do a little bit of breezing there, and once a week or so they open them up, and that's all there is to it. And you look how fit they are. So it's, again, the biggest mistake people make with thoroughbreds usually is bringing them home and they're too fit and they put them right back to work and then start trying to lunge them down, so to speak, to wear them out so that they can ride them. And unfortunately, when you do that, thoroughbreds horses get fit very, very, very fast. And they end up with something that pretty soon is taking 3 hours to lunge, to wear it down, so to speak, which is why we never lunge to wear horses down, so to speak, but to train them properly. So she's done the right thing. She gave the horse a little time off, and now she's starting her back. She's taking care of many of the horse's physical problems with the help of an osteopath, it sounds like. And that's the right thing to do. Find out what's really there when you work a horse like this, you know, and you bring them in from the track, and they've had all this this kind of hard work that can be so hard on them. We just have to really take our time, let them chill out at home for a while. As you hear me say with many horses that are hot, you know, the first thing to do is just get them to walk and just spend a lot of time walking them and let that hyper fitness kind of dissipate a bit. But what I'm seeing here is really good. So this horse is off to a really good start already, stretching really nicely in the walk here and doesn't seem too excitable. She said we can't hear that, of course, because you're not hearing the original soundtrack, but evidently someone was shooting guns off in the distance here somewhere, and it actually starts raining here on them in a bit. So she's done a really good job of doing this so far, and for this horse to be that calm after having run so many races and come off the racetrack and with actually not a whole lot of time to downtime, but she looks like a really sensible mare. What I'm seeing here is a really pretty nice working walk there in the stretch, so the horse is really picking up its legs, and the more it stretches down, once again, you can see how active the hind legs become. As the head goes down, the hind leg swings much more through. So once again, that idea that people talk about is how far should a horse stretch down? Well, if a horse has no top line, when they first get them to stretch, they will just go straight down from the shoulders, and that's what they have to do because there's no top line to hold the neck up and out. So you'll hear many arguments about how far a horse should stretch down. But it all depends on the horse itself, of course, and of course the length of the horse's neck. Some horses have really long necks, and so they're going to have to stretch way, way down, you know. But they must go down as far as they need to go down to get swinging over their back. And with horses that have no top line, that's going to be very, very deep. And what we see is that as horses develop top line, the horse, after stretching down into it, will just start to lift its head and neck all by itself and hold it up and out more, and the stretch will not be so deep because it won't be necessary to be so deep. So if we watch the horse's hind legs, we can always tell pretty much where we want that to be. Like there, you see she gets really far down and she really starts to swing those hind legs. So movement is always what we're after. Whenever we think about, and someone tells you this should be this way or this should be that way, you know, it's the movement that we have to look at to see how that's being affected by whatever position the person might be asking you to put the horse in. So we want the position that allows the most freedom of movement so the horse can swing through the back and therefore develop a top line. So sometimes that can be very low as a horse like this. I mean, she's practically down to the ground, and that's perfectly fine. You can see this horse doesn't have a lot of top line. She probably ran hollow on the track. You can see that the withers are very peaked and have never really developed where they should be. Remember, it always takes about a 2-year process for a horse to complete its physical development. That is, through the stretch, the horse begins to lift the withers up through the shoulders, and the back will flatten behind the withers and all the way back to the croup. But that's about a 2-year process to bring a horse, especially one that's been abused or has never had a top line. It's definitely going to take that long. In other words, it's going to take you a year to establish a top line and 2 years to confirm that top line. before the horse's head and neck is ever going to be very high. It's about the time frame that it takes for the body to go through that change necessary of the withers pulling up through the shoulders, as I said. So take your time with it, which you obviously are doing here. The fun thing about doing this is that, you're really getting involved with the horse, and you're really doing something that takes a little mind, a little intelligence and thought into what we're doing, instead of just jumping on a horse and blindly riding it in whatever way we possibly can. I mean, that's kind of a mindless activity, isn't it? But, dressage is all about really getting deep into the horse and relaxing its mind, getting it to work correctly without tension. And these things take time and thought. And, of course, they always take, as well as what it takes from the horse, it takes a lot of patience from the rider, which is what riding ought to teach you. It ought to teach you self-control, and it ought to teach you how to do things over a long period of time and develop something instead of wanting instant gratification, as so many people do in today's world. Now, getting into the trot here, all that walk work was really good. And when you described to me what horse has been through, I was amazed at how nice and what that walk was. So doing a great job here. And even getting into the trot, while she's not all the way stretched down here, she's certainly got a pretty rhythmic trot there. It's not terrible. Now, you can definitely see how the hind legs are falling out behind her. So she hasn't stretched enough to begin to complete the stride through her back. And so you get that kind of shortening. You see how the hind legs are a little bit falling out behind, slow, fast. Now, but however, this is well on its way to being what you want it to be. I mean, she's really going very relaxed for this type of horse and beginning to stretch into the contact. So you're definitely right on track here with what you're doing. And actually, from what I see here, she looks like she's really going to turn into quite a nice horse. Now, you said also in your message there that you'd like to see you wish the horse was a little bigger. Well, the point being here of what you're doing here, when the horse completes this work, it will be bigger. It will be taller. The withers will come up to the shoulders, and the horse will be at least an inch or two taller than it is right now. And of course, as the top line develops and you really have something to sit on, the horse will begin to flesh out and will certainly feel like a lot bigger horse than it is. I really like how this rhythm, and there she goes down and stretches, kind of hard to see, it's so dark there, but when she really stretched down, I could suddenly see a lot more movement through the back. And that was the right thing to do, to come back to a walk there, let her go on for a while. If you don't get as deep a stretch, and also to reward her when she does, which she did there. That backside of that last circle started to look really good. And that was the right thing to do. Come back, reward her for that. Come back to the walk and work the walk again for a while. For a horse off the racetrack, though, this horse is really exhibiting a lot of calm, and that's a really good thing and a testament to how much work you must have done on her already, just getting her to trust you. Really good walk there. Always remembering how important the walk is to the work. You can do a lot of walk work with these kinds of horses. There, now that's really nice. Look at that stretch all the way down. And you can clearly see when she stretches down like that, there really is no top line at all. So, she's going to stretch really, really deep. And just know that when you can get that stretch and the neck doesn't curl back, it will gradually just begin to lift up all on its own. And then it will be, then your stretch will be down to about the level of the knees, as people talk about. I hear people talking all the time, the horse should never be stretched deeper than that. But the reality is they're all different, as I talked about before, and it depends upon the strength of their back. So if they have no top line at all, they're going to hang their necks pretty much straight down from the shoulders till they start to develop some. But that was really good. This shows a lot of improvement for the short period of time that you've been working this horse. This horse looks like it has become very, very comfortable with you and is trusting you. And that, of course, is the basis for everything else that we do. When you can trust your horse and the horse trusts you, then we can have a real partnership between the two, and it becomes a lot safer, because a horse that is, communicating with you and trusts you and you trust it, is going to try for you. So when you're in that sticky moment where, the horse, for instance, could stop at a fence or not, the one that trusts you will probably take the fence. Walk here on this side, looks just about as good as on the other side. It's a little hard to see sometimes because of the darkness of the background. I know we're all waiting for these new solo shot cameras. We've been waiting for ours for I think a year now or something. Hopefully they're going to get those soon, and then people can get those, and they're not going to be terribly expensive, and it'd be so much better. We're waiting to do a lot of videos. We keep thinking, they keep telling us this thing is coming. It's like with me, it's people see me coming with the camera. We've done so many videos that it's very hard work to sit and focus a camera, for a half an hour at a time. So we're all looking forward to getting those robot cameras, which, for instance, would make this much better in that it would zoom in. I could really see everything that's going on with the horse. Now you can see there, because she's not stretching all the way down, while the walk is still pretty regular, it's still falling out behind a little bit in the hind, and as she stretches down, you'll see a deeper over track. It would be good in the future, like with this horse, to do a few photographs of the horse's body that you can add to these videos in the beginning, so we can really get a look at the horse more closely up and see what it looks like, as it's kind of hard in this tape to really be able to see much other than the general outline. But what I'm seeing I like a lot. You've done a really good job with this. You see she's starting to get a little more active there. It looks like she maybe doesn't stretch down as readily on this side as the other side. That's always true until horses get over their back. Always remembering that that's what makes horses straight. Out there right now, I'm seeing something called straightness training that they're calling, and then you look at the horses and they're completely hollow. A horse cannot be straight unless it lifts its back. That's what allows the vertebra to become free and actually allows the horse to bend. So a horse that can't bend can never be straight. Yes, you can spend hours trying to position their shoulders in front of their hindquarters, but if the back is hollow, it's pretty much worthless. You'll hear a lot of people today bantering the term biomechanics, which is a real term. It simply means how the horse is moving relative to its posture and how that affects the actual movement. All that it is. But unfortunately, so many people today are using this term, and then you only have to go to their websites and see their horses, and they're completely swayback, yet they're talking biomechanics. So, and even people who are pulling the necks up have, all this convoluted theory about why you have to pull the neck way up in the air and what this does to the horse biomechanically. And really, if they knew what they were talking about, they would realize that pulling the head up is actually the opposite of what one needs to do for the biomechanics to actually work correctly. So once you get an idea for how horses are supposed to move and the development of the top line, you can all easily evaluate for yourselves the merits of some of these various methods out there that talk about biomechanics. So again, no matter what you're doing, if the result ends up in a hollow horse, it can't be very good. Certainly not good for the horse. One always has to remember that, when we talk about classical riding evolved over hundreds of years, even if we go back to Xenophon the Greek, while he talks a lot about being kind to the horses and this kind of stuff, he doesn't have a lot of knowledge about how they physically develop. That come much later. Then we had, the dressage of the Renaissance, which became this, really kind of hollow little trot-trotty kind of stuff around a little tiny ring, the horses that were never ridden outside, and that was the big sort of schism between the people who rode horses for cross country and jumping and all these kind of things, and people who rode this so-called academic dressage, where they ride it around in a little 15-meter by 30-meter arena, doing these kind of upside down piaffe and passage, and even levades and all these kind of movements that they do, but the horse isn't up through the back all of those things are damaging. And if you tried to take one of those kinds of horses out and gallop it cross country, you would find yourself on the ground more than likely, as well as the horse, because they're so out of balance. So it was only the late part of the 19th century when people began to find a way of dressage that worked for all horses. That is, you could have a horse that could have extended gaits as well as these, and of course, a different kind of a collected trot rather than this kind of shortened collected trot. So when you see people talking about that kind of training, this kind of Baroque dressage, some people will call it, and this sort of thing, it really is, that's what they're talking about. They're not realizing or haven't been educated enough to realize that dressage developed beyond that into something where we begin to understand how the back must work correctly, and that we can have horses with extended gaits as well as just these shortened little high knee step kind of thing, which is kind of similar to what saddlebreds and these sort of things are. So learning the history of all this is very important to your understanding of how this is evolving, how this has evolved, and where your place is in it in the modern world. So the modern classical system is very different than this old sort of the oldest form of indoor ring riding, one might call it, where the horses were just shortened and hollow-backed. And once again, just like with saddlebreds back in the day, saddlebreds were designed so that somebody who can't ride can sit on them, because they're hollow in the back, so they never have any thrust through the back. They simply are lifting their legs up and putting them down again and gaining very little forward motion or movement. So having an understanding of the historical perspective of all this is very important. And just know that you can go back through time and look at the greatest riders of all time in all sports, including racing, jumping, understood, if even only instinctively, that horses have to work over their backs. But you're well on your way to getting this one working over its back. Now you can still hear there, it starts to stretch all the way down there, and that's exactly what we're looking for. So even if that only happens for a moment, it won't be long before you'll be getting that consistent. Now, I personally would not start, doing any kind of riding until I had all that consistent and actually built enough strength in the back that it was be able to carry us. Really good stretch there. I really think, though, this is going to turn out to be a really nice horse. It's really quite a nice mover. And for the length of time and for the amount of races that you did on this horse did, the fact that it's so calm and regular as it is a testament to what a good horse it is and what a good job you've done with it so far. And once again, watch as the horse, every time the horse stretches that neck down, once again, it's a little hard to see because it's so dark in the background there, but every time it stretches down, you can clearly see more engagement through, and the horse starts to push up through the back. So remember, a horse can carry you in one of two ways. It can either pull along with its shoulders and pull you along, which means it's totally out of balance all the time, or it can engage through a round back and let the thrust continue through the back, which can only happen if the horse has a round back, and then the front end lifts off the ground, and that's what makes a horse light. We have to all get out of our eyes, out of our brains, this whole idea of this high knee action thing. That some horses would have a higher knee action even when they're worked correctly, but that's not the goal, is to have a horse lifting its knees up in the air, not without coming through the back. And of course, you can only imagine that a horse like this, that has no top line and no strength, if you got on it, and tried to pull its head up in the air and, do all the things that we see people doing, proclaiming that they're doing collection, you would get nowhere with this horse, and it would totally break down, and in no time at all, you would have nothing at all. And unfortunately, so many people do that, and when we see so many of these very expensive horses just going down that path of being ridden until they fall apart and then buying another one. Of course, the only good thing about that is a lot of my students get a lot of nice free horses, and they really have, these people who do this to these horses, they really think they're shot completely. They have so little understanding of what they could do. Most of these horses could be brought back if they were willing to take the time like you're willing to do with this one. But if your whole goal in life and with horsemanship is simply to, collect a bunch of trophies and ribbons for your wall, you're not going to get very far, and your horses are not going to last very long. You may win the Olympic Games, but the point is you've lost the relationship between you and the horse, and that's the only thing that's really important. Now, don't get me wrong, just like Nuno Oliveira, a lot of people thought that Nuno was against showing. He was not against showing, he was against bad riding. Exactly my sentiments. But he himself, like Egon van Nuyler, at about the same time, at the height of their careers, both walked away from competitive dressage, stating that they couldn't stand the direction competitive dressage was going. And once again, that was back in the 50s. So, you know, that's how we got to where we are now, so to speak. You've done I see a little light rain coming down there now. You've done a great job with this horse, and I really look forward to seeing it in the future. I think it's going to turn into something nice. I look forward to seeing some more close-up pictures, though, so we can actually see what the horse really looks like close-up in your next video. Even if you have to do one from far like this, you know, spend a little time, take some stills or use some video footage and go over the horse and let us see a little bit more of what the horse looks like close-up, so we can see its body a little more. Here it's just kind of, we can see the outline, which is good. I'm able to at least comment on what you're doing there. Just like to see the horse a little closer. Really nice walk there as it starts to stretch down. But I'm really impressed in how you've kept this horse really relaxed throughout all of this. For a horse coming off the racetrack to have run as many races as the horse has. Now, I will say the ones that run a lot of races, if they haven't completely destroyed them, can be amazing horses. In that, you know, it's a testament to how good a piece of horse flesh they are if they can run 30 races and still be standing, with the way so many of them are trained these days. Now, there are good trainers at the racetrack who understand, just like there are in riding horses, that understand the horses have to be over their backs. Next time you watch a race, look very closely and see which horses are throwing their heads up as they're coming down the track. Those are horses that are galloping off of their shoulders. So really great work here. This is Will Faerber from Art to Ride. I look forward to seeing your next one, and this horse turning into something really, really nice for you. So great job here today. Keep up the good work.